Margaret Mullins. Maiden name was Hillier. My ancestors are from Lameline and Fortune, Buren, St. John's, and these places, but I was born in Fortune and lived here until I was 16 when I went to university, and then came back after I was married, sometimes in the summertime and that. Came back here to live in 63 and left again in 78. Came back in 91. I've been here ever since. I was a teacher, and since I retired, I've been writing books, Well, I wrote the first one, as I was telling you, in 89. And then ever since I've been researching this one. I'm bringing up 5 children, so that's a full-time job. So this last fall I put out my CD. It was too big for a book. It's over 1,300 pages. And the Families of Fortune, from circa 1763 to 1900. And I've sold quite a lot of them, the CDs. People are quite interested. I feel it's a legacy I'm leaving, So, well, I used to come to Fortune. My mother was living here then. And I would come up, and I went to the United Church Manse in Fortune, Reverend Kane and his wife, and they were so good, and I copied and all the church records. And then I did them in St. John's at the archives but I want to get the originals first, And then afterwards I went to Harbour Breton and Reverend Atkinson and his wife. They were also so good. And I photocopied there all the Harbour Breton records, stacks of them. And we had a storm, the lights went out. So she prepared a cold lunch for us, and just thunder and lightning. And my husband had to come back here because the basement window was leaking, and somebody called and said there could be, it was a bad storm, almost like Igor, but not quite as bad. Anyway, I'm deviating. And I spoke with Randy Sims there in the spring, I suppose. No, it was about a year ago, time goes, about my book. And he said, I guess you've met, quite a lot of important people. And I said, well, I can't think of anyone in particular. Everybody is important. Everybody's story is so important, And in Fortune, everybody was white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, WASPs, and a little bit of Irish and a little bit of Norman French. Found it quite intriguing. So, all in all, these are the things that I've done. I've been to England 3 times researching, but where my ancestors were here so early, it's very hard to find them back there. And mostly I found were the ones in Guernsey. I don't know where my Gorman ancestor came from. I think from Tipperary. I found in the Basilica records where I think my Ellen was born in 1823. I think that's the family, but they went to Buren, so that's my only Irish connection, And then in Guernsey, I found the French connection, the Norman French. Unfortunately, I have no family in Fortune, I have my mother's second cousins, good friends. They're here. But I have no close family here. My 5 children are scattered. So, and my husband died 6 years ago. So I'm kept quite busy with all I'm doing. But I feel it's a legacy I'm leaving, so that's the main thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't be recorded. My ancestor was the first Duke of Normandy, Rollo, the Viking chief, Rolf or Rollo. And when the Vikings were invading England and France, and they went to France, and King Charles the Simple offered to give Rollo Normandy, that became known as Normandy after, and to marry his daughter Giselle, if he would keep the peace and settle. So he did. He became a model subject, and he married the king's daughter, and he was a big man. He said he was so tall that he couldn't ride the horse, he used to walk. Well, he had a son, William Longsword, who was murdered, and then he had a son, Duke Richard, who had a son, Duke Richard, and Major, Archbishop Major. Well, I'm all the Majors from Guernsey, and William the Conqueror was his nephew. And he excommunicated William because he had married a young cousin, and the Archbishop didn't approve. And so he had the audacity to excommunicate William. And in retaliation, William banished his uncle, Archbishop Major, to Guernsey, the Channel Islands. And that's where our Majors all came from. So it's quite interesting. I have a big chart that I got at Macy's years ago delineating it all, and that's quite interesting.